Okay guys, so today what we're doing is I'm gonna put some industrial Bosch injectors in my D-rod. I know you guys probably watched the video of us actually putting the motor in it at industrial. And when we did that, we had some injectors in it that were pretty small. I can tell the way it fuels, it's just not getting the amount of fuel that it needs for big power on the big end. For spooling purposes, these smaller injectors actually work pretty good because it lights up really well. But on the big end, you know, it runs out of fuel. So we're gonna add a little bit of fuel to it. We're putting some 5x22 injectors in it. These are the R6 industrial injectors. They're all Bosch, brand new Bosch injectors. Industrial gets them and goes through them and puts their little twist on it and makes them so you can put them in your hot rod. So we're gonna start today by putting them in here, and we'll explain some stuff. Give you a little bit of history along the way, and we'll talk about injectors. Okay, so I'm going to take all these injectors out, lay them out so you guys can see them. I know there's a lot of guys out there that are watching this right now that know what I'm talking about, but there's a lot of people that don't really know how an injector really works and what the purpose of an injector is, just because, you know, a lot of people just get in their truck or their car and they fire it up and it just runs. So the thing about the 12-valve injector that I like the best is they are very, very, very forgiving for different kinds of fuel that you want to run through it. I'm telling you that these injectors will eat dirt. I'm telling you. These injectors will eat dirt. The pumps on these things will eat dirt, and it will still run. And you can still get a million miles out of them eating dirt all day. This injector basically in this 5.9 was designed for a industrial application, okay? And when Dodge was basically falling behind on a diesel engine in the 80s. So Ford had a diesel engine. It was a V8. It was kind of a pile of crap. It didn't really have any horsepower. Chevrolet came out with a V8 diesel engine way back in the early, I think in the early, maybe the late 70s or the early 80s. And it was a pile. It was a real pile of shit. So anyway, you know, Dodge is sitting over there going, man, I gotta come up with something. We gotta come up with something. Well, Cummins got with Dodge and said, hey, let's put one of these, you know, let's put a 5.9 in that thing, right? And me personally, with that movement, the Dodge truck has never had to look back. This vehicle with these 6 cylinders has out horsepowered and pulled V8 Fords and Chevrolets forever. Okay, you got to remember that the Chevy Duramax has a V8 in it. A Ford 6.7 or whatever's got a V8 in it. They still have a 6-cylinder inline motor. Two pistons less and still make as much horsepower and torque, more torque. And the potential to make more power with that 6-cylinder engine is greater, you understand? I would say that like the Ford and Chevy, they build a motor, a good motor, don't get me wrong, it's a good motor. And it runs 250,000 miles. But when you start really leaning on them hard, that's when things start coming apart. And there's so much there. You know, there's just so much to that V8 and the injection system and how it works. It's a lot. But you go to something like this simple 12-valve setup with timing, and it's all mechanical and it will run on anything. That's what I really love about this. The Cummins is a leading diesel motor that's been around since literally the early 1900s. You know, Rudolf Diesel, when he actually came up with the diesel motor back in the 1800s, I would say by the early 1900s, you know, Clancy Cummins said, you know what, I'm gonna build me a badass Cummins diesel. Well, at that time, Bosch makes, still to this day, makes the best injector that you can buy on the market. This guy died in 1942 at 80 years old during World War II. And he was an inventor. This guy could invent some really cool stuff. He had a lot of skills. I mean, but if you could think of the complications on how an injector works, and I can kind of show you. I'm not like I don't know everything about them. This right here is a first gen injector. This is kind of a sample. I just wanted to show you guys, and you can kind of see here, the nozzle tip on them is a little bit. This is bigger. It's like a 9mm, and this one I think is a 7mm. And on the first gens, they actually have a bigger nozzle on them. And if you're going to try to put a second gen injector in your first gen, there's a little copper sleeve that you put in there to actually make up for the room, and it comes in the kit when you put them in. But anyway, I grabbed this injector and we cut it up so I could kind of show you what's going on here. Let me just give you a rundown, because I don't think very many people have actually seen how an injector looks on the inside of an injector. And it looks kind of complicated when you look at it. It's like, God, really, what does this thing do and how does it work? You know, looking at that thing, you know, you just don't really know, you know. But you got these little holes on the side of the top of the body of the injector body. And what that is that's your return. This will be your return. And this is your fuel in, okay? Now, if you can see on this one here, I cut it off so you can kind of see how the fuel goes in and then it returns out right here, okay? All right, so we'll take this one apart. I've already kind of got it broke loose. And we'll start laying out a few things on here. And I'm just going to lay it out, kind of how this whole thing works. So there's your injector body there. That right there is your basically your puck for your spring compression. So you can adjust that to get more pressure on the spring for more of a pop, okay? This right here is basically just a little centering piece that goes into the spring, and it's like a wear point, so it's not riding on the spring. Got these little pins in here. You got to be careful when you take these apart, you'll lose them. Okay, so basically what you got here is you've got your injector body, you got your little puck here for your spacer for your spring, okay? You got your little guide tool right here that rides on top of your little plunger piece. And then you got this pintle pin right here that sits in your injector tip, okay? And it's kind of hard to see right here, and I don't know if you guys can see because this is really kind of a stock injector, so the holes are not very big. But I don't know if my shadows are kind of messing it up, but there's should be 5 little holes down here in the bottom of this, okay? And what happens is this goes down in there. And what happens is on timing with your pump, this will come up, let fuel in, and then when it comes down, boom, it sprays. It's like a plunger, okay? So every time it goes down, it creates a high pressure in the tip right here and just sprays it out. Okay, I've got an injector sitting in here so I can kind of show you how an injector sprays. Now, what happens with the difference between a fuel injected car and a injector on a diesel is a diesel runs on, you know, combustion. It doesn't run on fire. Like a spark comes out of a spark plug and fires. This one here creates heat. It comes up, creates so much pressure and heat. At the same time, it starts to get like ready to explode. This injector fires, poof, and creates so much more torque. That's why diesels get so much more torque, is it's the combustion in the motor. It's not the fire like a gasoline will make horsepower, but it doesn't make torque like a diesel does. So the compression on a gasoline motor basically makes somewhere between 8.5 to 9 to 1, okay? The diesel engine makes anywhere from 14 to 22. So you can see that there's so much more volume there, okay? And a lot more compression. And when that compression comes up, it's getting hot and it's ready to fire. And with a little bit of gas or a little bit of fuel, it's going to fire. It's going to make a lot of power when it comes down, and that's where they come up with that power stroke. It's the power stroke is what it is. Anyway, I'm going to show you on this one how it sprays out of the nozzle, and give you guys kind of an idea on how a fuel injector actually works. Okay. You know, I loved James Bond when I was a kid, right? Remember James Bond? He always had cool shit. All his cars were badass. He always got the hot chick. He's always driving something cool, right? That's me. The only difference is I don't get no hot chicks with this thing. I get a lot of dudes. Oh, see that? Okay, so there's a little tendon in this knuckle. That was 18 pounds right there of torque. I have tendonitis in my elbow, and at 50 foot-pounds, it hurts. My grandpa got out of the war. He came home. He did 9 battles. He lived through 2 typhoons, and I never heard him bitch about one thing. Never. And so when I redid this car, I did it in memory of him because I feel like it's the least I can do. If you look at the new Destroyers too, they got this front end on the front windshield. It's just cool as hell. I don't know if anybody's ever really seen, but if you come back here, the wing on this is actually off an aircraft that was at war. And then if you look right here, 9/18/1920 was when my grandfather was born. He fought from 42 to 45 in World War II. So I tagged it, like his tags, in the car. When the 12 valve was put into the diesel rat rod, it was just a game changer. I mean, basically, people were tripping out. I'd show up to car shows and they didn't even know what it was because they'd never seen a 12 valve diesel engine out of either a tractor or a truck or whatever it was in. They've never seen it. They never seen those individual valve covers sitting on top of the head, you know. And it was just like people would trip out on what it was. They thought it was a helicopter motor. I've heard everything. I've heard everything. And you know, in the early days, before people knew who I was, I would just stand back and let people talk about the car at the car shows and just see what they would say. And it was pretty awesome to watch people trip out on it. I mean, the haters really are kind of what got me here. I mean, kicking me out of the car shows, talking shit on the computer, magazine articles, all that caused craze towards this vehicle. And it wasn't even really me, it was more the D-Rod. You know, I was the mad brain behind the development of it, but it's before me. I'm back here, it sits in front of me, and it always has. You know, it really is the forefather for Welder Up, and my legacy is this car. Anyway, it's been fun. It's a great legacy. I wanted to share that with you guys. I hope you enjoyed our little video on, you know, just changing out some injectors on a 12 valve. You know, it had to be done anyway, so I thought we'd make a cool little video out of it. And hope you guys enjoyed it, so we'll see you on the next one.